This podcast is not safe for work and will feature movie spoilers. It will feature scenes described of a graphic nature. It will contain language which most listeners may find offensive. Welcome to the podcast Under the Stairs. Hi everyone and welcome to the podcast Under the Stairs. This is your Christmas Eve episode. That's right, we are here again. And you know what? This isn't a commentary. We're going to do it. Well, no, we're actually never going to do a commentary because Baz hates them. So what instead... thumbs down. What we decided to do instead is we opened the floor, which to be honest, like instantly I had the fear. To you guys on the Facebook group page, facebook.com/groups/teapotscast, to pick the movie that you wanted. And surprisingly, you didn't pick, well, in my opinion, surprisingly, you didn't pick a bad movie. Baz hasn't seen it before his review, so we'll see how we get on here. But you chose Near Dark from 1987. Simply put, one of my favourite vampire movies of all time. There was a bit of fifara, which I think is a technical term, and as a result of that, we are also going to be covering, in a shorter form, a review of something else. Before we get to that, it would not be a Christmas Eve episode for the podcast Under the Stairs without introducing, let's be honest, he's the talent here. I am purely the button pusher. He is the man, the myth, the legend, the Baz.
Ho ho ho, sexy bitches. Happy Christmas, one and all. The Baz is just glad he is not commenting on anything tonight. Which I will inevitably end up having to break down in one of those stupid bloody pieces series as well.
Well, yeah, that's at the moment that's been the template for all of them. And let's be honest, like they've been a lot of fun. They've been a lot of fun.
They have been, actually. Yeah. That's clearly my forte now, is just reviewing 5 minutes of a movie. That's my limit. Now that I've hit 50, nah, I'm not doing whole films anymore, Duncan. I'll give you 5 minutes, mate. Any 5 minutes you want, just pick 5 minutes.
You've got my best for 5 minutes, and then that's it. Like, to put things in perspective, though, we're not doing a commentary. There was no like full-on conscientious choice behind that, but through more chats with you, we have discerned. I don't think I fully appreciated it, how much you actually dislike doing them. Like, I always kind of, Baz is having a wee laugh. Baz is... And part of me, like, secretly gets off in the misery of others. That's why no one should ever tell me something makes them like, that's gross, because then I'll go out my way to make that happen. Because it's just the way my brain is. You're like literally putting a target on yourself. But yeah, like, as you described it most recently to me, it's over alcohol, which, because you're not having a great time, you will drink more of.
Yeah.
The movie is playing, because there's no subtitles on it, you can't hear what the people are saying because it has to be at a level loud enough for you to obviously make out what's happening, but at the same time not so loud that the people that are speaking to you are not inaudible to you. So as a result of that, you're in some quasi-weird limbo area, like some purgatory between the world of watching the movie and hearing everything so you understand what's happening, and listening to people chatting to you, asking your opinions on things, or asking you regaling. If ever you go on a story, which will often happen, at that point you lose track of everything that happens on the screen. So then you come back in 10 minutes later without context. We're all talking because we've seen the movie a million times, how great it is, and you've seen none of it. So I didn't want to put you through that again, which I think now transcribed to the audience out there, they will appreciate the fact that maybe we won't do them again.
Yeah, in fairness, it's actually a little more than that. With the problems I have with my hearing,
yeah,
the that confusion between the sound from the movie and the sound from you guys talking, it's more than just a little bit of confusion. It's hard to explain. It's very, very uncomfortable and frustrating and just fucking awful. And then we tend not to pick the best films. The only good film we ever did a commentary of was Grave Encounters.
I would dispute that 100 times over, but I see what you're saying.
Oh no, we did The Last Shift as well, didn't we?
We did do The Last Shift, but I think there's other ones in there that are good movies. Like, she didn't like them.
But yeah, I don't enjoy the experience. And then, as you say, by 20 minutes in, normally I don't have a clue what's happening, and I've just lost all interest in commenting on the film. And it's just me drinking and staring at myself.
Like the messiest, like we were talking like, because we have that other show that we do with the Scott and Liam guys, Jaws is Shite, which encourages us to drink on those shows, right?
Yes.
As drunk as you have been, and there's one that springs to mind more recently where you were not well. I think you were self-medicating and drinking, which is a terrible idea. An absolutely terrible idea. They're still not as drunk as you've been on some of those commentaries, which I think you do through boredom.
And self-loathing. I hate the fact I've been forced into doing it again.
Well, we put in the people's hands, and there was a lot of choices. To be honest with you, we're gonna get in a little bit of detail because obviously we have our secret chat with Scott and Liam, and I was remarking at how surprised I was that Near Dark had won because, like I said before, I think Near Dark was a fucking great movie. Like I absolutely love it. And I mean, like, directed by future Academy Award winning director Catherine Bigelow, who went on to do Zero Dark 30, who's married to, I'm sure she was married, or at least she was
the one to do Goddamn Point Break. That's what she went on to do. The real one, the good one.
Yeah, but she didn't get an Oscar for that, Maz. But she was the other half of James Cameron. She was like, she was either married or she was like in a serious long-term relationship with James Cameron, pretty much through the 80s and the 90s. And then they separated, and then she won an Oscar, and he made Avatar, and then no movies until Avatar 2. So I'm just like, she might have been the creative master, the muse, so to speak. But yes, she kind of cuts her teeth in a lot of respects with Near Dark. I think it's a brilliant movie. But there was a lot of suggestions that are not Near Dark caliber that I genuinely thought were gonna, like, I thought these are the ones that are gonna go in. And then our good friend, I think we can still call him our good friend. Our good friend, one young Mr. Liam Rafferty, put forward the suggestion of Trash Humpers, which was a movie I had seen before. Not for a long fucking time, because this one was notorious. And I felt guilty that Liam's choice had been removed. And then Scott made a conversation about how great is Baz's review going to be if... Oh, this is actually a really well done scene. The acting's really good in this. like it's like no piffy one-liners. I was like, Baz will find a joke somewhere, and he's like, but it's not going to be great. Should have been with Trash Humpers. So I was like, well, how about we segue smaller review in? Let's just start kind of over the top, just cliff notes. I know there isn't a lot in the movie anyway, so we'd probably like jump about quite easy. And we are going to do that at the first break. However, what I have found out, and we should probably put a disclaimer at the front here, which has tickled my asshole in a way which has made me so happy right now. When I said to you did watch the movie, didn't you? What was your reply, Baz?
Aye, I watched 10 minutes of it. Then I stopped. And do you know, seeing thinking, I have never done that with a film.
No, you watched all of August Underground.
All the years, and some of the garbage that I have been made to watch for this show. Mm-hmm. And do you know what? I'm just too long in the tooth.
Was it In Memoriam? Was that the name of the movie? The horrible, shitty, lo-fi found footage movie that actually did get a scare from you in the fucking credits of all places. I'm sure it's In Memoriam. It's that memorable that we can't remember it.
There was In Memoriam. There was Bad Ben.
Bad Ben was the other one. In Memoriam was the year before. And it wasn't very good. It was fucking shit. And like you sat through all that, and it gave you I think the credits at the end were really creepy, which gave us pause for thought. You almost were like, this is beaten Baz. But like, yeah, like I'd come back to, you watched an August Underground, which both of us at the time remarked is really, like, as an exploration of what someone can do from a visual effects point of view with no money. From that point of view, it's interesting. I don't need to watch an hour and a half of it though. You know what I mean? A 5-minute montage would have been fine. But you sat through all of that. You only got 10 minutes through Trash Humpers.
Yeah. Now, right, so
Liam's
just
gonna
to
be
clarify, so we've been planning to do this past couple of weeks. I have not been well. I've really been quite unwell.
Yes.
I was off my work a good portion of last week and a bit of this week as well. I've had a pretty serious chest infection.
Yeah.
It's taken some time to shift. Now, I in the past, if I'm ill, for some reason, I will latch on to something around me at that time and kind of psychosomatically transfer my illness to that.
Yep.
The famous example of this being the album November Coming Fire by Swell, Glenn Danzig's band, which I bought for an awful lot of money on import from 23rd Precinct Records in Glasgow when I was just a young lad. Came home, immediately fell ill, convinced myself that I was allergic to this vinyl record and gave it to my pal Greg. It was clear I was later going to swallow. And that album's worth a fortune these days, can't it? Because Danzig's never reissued any of the Swell stuff at all. So it's really, really hard to get your hands on.
But it's got a death curse on it, Baz, so that...
There's a death curse on it.
You don't need the money.
So anyway, in a similar thing, I had watched the trailer for Trash Humpers a few weeks back, I think, just to go, what the fuck is this? I had a rough gist of what this was going to be, and I remember when I was kind of in my bed unwell.
Which is probably the worst time to watch Trash Humpers, to be fair.
Well, this is exactly. So I had watched Near Dark. Because obviously got time to kill, watched Near Dark, I watched that Trash Hump. And I thought, no, do you know what? It's going to be one of these movies that is going to make me feel worse. And it's going to burrow into my head and I'm never going to be able to get it out. So I didn't watch it. So I'd been so ill, I didn't actually finish redoing my notes for Near Dark until just before we sat down to record. But I finished them earlier on this evening. My wife is now unwell, so she was going to her bed, and I was just sitting in one of the chairs with my laptop, finished watching Near Dark, finished typing up my notes, and I downloaded that Trash Humpers. I thought, I'll stick it on. I'll just watch it just now. 10 minutes in, I was like, nope, that's not for me at all. I am 50 years of age. I am not putting myself through this. I don't, honest to God. And the thing was, I feel that film peaks about 2 minutes in, when the little guy literally humps the wheelie bin.
Yep.
That, I wouldn't say I smiled, right? But it's the nearest I got to one.
You missed him like on top of an American dumpster, like doing the same shagging motion, and someone saying "fuck it's trash pussy."
In the trailer. I think that's in the trailer.
The guy says "fuck it's trash pussy." You don't like that word.
I know exactly. So now I'm glad I missed that.
It's like there's a couple of things I will see in. Defense is a strong word. There's a couple of words I will use, like a couple of things I will use when we come back as exhibits of scenes that happen in the movie, which maybe belie a slight genius behind it. But you are with a myriad of people that lasted about 10 minutes for the movie before switching off. There's a lot of people out there that do not like this movie. So Liam loves it apparently though, which he said the word loves, and I was like, that's a strong phrase to put against Trash Humpers.
Liam smokes a lot of high quality drugs though. And I can see if you are proper baked, like really annihilated on that sweet THC, I can see how this film might be quite amusing. Not when you're on fairly high strength antibiotics.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's a very different effect.
It's completely different.
And, yeah. I remember actually August Underground had popped into my head because it's got that same god awful video quality.
Well, I think if it's not shot on VHS, it makes it look like it's shot on VHS. This one definitely is shot on VHS, but August Underground has that kind of underground tape traded VHS sort of feel. Yeah,
graininess kind of thing. Yeah. But I remember thinking that at least August Underground, there was a level of plot to it.
There's a story, it's a thin story. You can see right through it. There isn't necessarily a story. In fact, there isn't a story at Trash Humpers at all. It's more a series of slowly escalate. It's kind of in a weird way. It would be what like Poughkeepsie Tapes would be like without the documentarian and the interview around it. So see if you were just seeing the escalation of those videos one after each other, the found videos. Like, without the context surrounding those, they would be... Because remember at the beginning, he does, like, fucking strange things. He's walking around with weird masks on. You'd have to get through a lot of that before, like, the seriously disturbed shit kind of kicked in. And that's kind of Trash Humpers. And even then, the seriously disturbed shit is all... It's all implied. It's all implied than it is necessarily... We'll speak about it. But before we get to it, we're going to talk about Near Dark. Before we get into our small break and then our discussion on Trash Humpers, which I promise to the listeners out there will be brief, because he's only seen 10 minutes and I don't want to be talking about a lot of things that I know for a fact, from the look of your face, you're not going to go back and verify. So that movie's that is a 10 and done for you. So I'm not going to waste my energy on that. But we've got through another year. We're at the end, and it's been a fucking weird year for Podcasts Under the Stairs. This is the final episode that we put out every year, and just overall, it's been very bizarre. Like just like a lot of weird things, a lot of roadblocks, a lot of life stuff, to be honest with you, which we've somehow managed to successfully avoid in the 10 years up to the 10th anniversary. And then lots of fucking weird shit started happening and just like horrible. And like the passing of time and whatnot, things that will inevitably happen. But it would not be a Podcast Under the Stairs year for me until we sit down at the end of it and kind of bring it back home with one of like the episodes that the folks like. They like the Baz. They like me interacting and mostly laughing to the Baz. So we're gonna do that for you on this episode. It would be incumbent on me as a podcast host to ask if, since the last time you recorded, fuck knows when that was. I think that may be in October. Anything that you've seen that you really liked?
Midnight Mass on Netflix.
Yes, which I've now finished.
Good. So I picked that up. I think maybe the last time I was on, I maybe mentioned it briefly.
Yep.
But yeah, I finished that. I really enjoyed that show.
Fucking excellent. Yeah.
I thought that was a really good... I really don't... I think I said this last time. I don't want to say too much about it because it's the way it flips between genres almost kind of halfway through. But I really, really liked that. I liked the way they ended it. I thought that was excellent. And another one which was a total random watch. It recorded off of Channel 4, I think. This was just the other week. Was an Irish film called Boys from County Hell.
Yeah, which I have seen and I couldn't even remember, and it wasn't until you posted the poster and I was like that. Oh, I've seen that movie.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed that. A vampire movie, a kind of quirky Irish take on the kind of Nosferatu, Dracula, Stoker mythos type thing. The only person in it I think there was maybe a couple in it that I knew, but the main one was the girl. She was one of the girls from Derry Girls, very successful Channel 4, I think it was, that did Derry Girls, Irish comedy set during the Troubles, which is excellent for anybody that's not seen it. It's really, really good, really funny. But the girl that is in Boys from County Hell, in Derry Girls, she plays this almost kind of very spacey, constantly stoned, doesn't really know what's going on with the world type character. And she's totally not that in this movie, and it was quite refreshing to see her playing that role kind of thing. But for a film where basically I knew, I think, two of the actors in it, I thought it was phenomenally well acted. Lots of pretty cool practical effects and stuff like that. And just a nice little take on something that's been done 100 times before, but they managed to find a kind of new way into it and a new way to keep you interested in the whole thing, and I thought that was really, really good. I really enjoyed that. It reminded me a little bit about that, what was the one the guy from Emmerdale done? Was it Inbred?
Yes, Inbred, that's right, yeah.
That kind of... a very British vibe to it, albeit it's an Irish film, right? I'm sort of lumping them in. We'll take it all back eventually anyway, so we'll just call it British for the sake of it. Just try to get us bombed out, big man. Yeah, it kind of reminded me of that. It's fairly low budget and stuff like that, but they work well with what they've got. Which I've got a lot more time for than just chucking money at something and a steaming pile of shit anyway. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, really enjoyed that movie the other night. That was a big fave as well. What about yourself?
Awesome.
Anything interesting recently? I did really want to go and see that Godzilla film the other night.
I think you would like it quite a bit because it's so it's right after the end of the Second World War. So the time period,
it's almost like an origin kind of story.
Well, yeah. So it's, like I obviously misinterpreted because I can't know everything. But I thought -1 referred to the fact that I saw it as a prequel to Godzilla. So Godzilla's set in the 50s. The original Japanese Godzilla is set in the 50s. This one starts in 45 and finishes by, I think it's 47, 48. So my assumption was the -1 was it was minus the first one, but apparently -1 refers to it's a specific term that refers to post Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which I didn't know about. So I think that's what it actually refers to. So it's a kind of prequel to the Godzilla story. Very, very, very well done. I can see why people are very high on it this year. I think some people are a bit too high on it this year, if I'm being honest. I think from a point of view of it doesn't have a colossal budget. It's a relatively small Japanese movie for all intents and purposes. The fact that it's secured its biggest, its highest grossing box office in America, and looks like it's going to do the same in Europe for a Japanese movie is kind of huge for their film industry. But also, first and foremost, it's a Godzilla movie which doesn't have all the trappings of Hollywood. Godzilla in this is evil as fuck. He goes around eating people, and he's determined to destroy humanity, which is something we don't often get in our Godzilla movies now. He's got a real fucking nasty streak, but there's also a story specifically. The Godzilla movie, the original Godzilla movies were a kind of causal effect of a broken country. So Japan comes out of the Second World War basically not only destroyed by atomic bombs, which Oppenheimer obviously covers, but moreover on that, their society was set up to believe that the emperor, the king, essentially the emperor, was God, and he denounced his godhood. like when they surrendered. You basically said, "I am a god." So for those people, that is a fundamental breaking with reality and tradition that they'd had for hundreds of years. So it kind of broke them as a people, but it kind of deals with the idea of the expenditure of human life. The main character in it is the guy that we follow is a kamikaze pilot who didn't go through with his orders, so lands on an island claiming that his plane's malfunctioned. And that's where he first encounters Godzilla, and this is 1945, and then we kind of follow his life through to 47 when Godzilla comes back, and this weight that hangs over him, over his inactions, and the way that society perceives him as a coward for not going through with what was divine fate. Like, they have a very, like, even nowadays the Japanese have a very, very, very relaxed attitude towards suicide. It's very, very scary, but it kind of deals with that aspect. So it's always about the society in the background, and that's what I love about, like, the original Godzilla movies, less so the ones that kind of trundled through the 70s and 80s, and it kind of sticks true to that, so it really puts a strong emphasis on that. My overall thoughts were, whilst I thought it was a great monster movie, I love those things, I don't think it's the best movie I've seen this year, which is what a lot of people are. I think it's an overreaction because, like, Godzilla movies, for all intents and purposes, minus Shin Godzilla, which came out a couple of years ago, have been relatively mediocre. Even the Hollywood ones have been relatively mediocre. And then this one seems like a return to form, but I feel like that return to form is being escalated to a point where the movie's actually not. It's just my personal opinion. I've seen better movies this year. I'm always caught up on the, is Godzilla a horror movie or not? I've always been that way, where they get talked about on these, and I would talk about a movie like Bong Joon-ho's The Host as a horror movie, but when it comes to Godzilla, I'm always a bit reluctant because I always feel like it kind of transcends into action. And this one certainly has more horror leanings, but it's not the best horror movie I've seen this year. There are a good handful more better ones. If it is for other people, that's great. It's done an immense amount of money. Toho Studios will be over the moon with it. I dare say we'll get something moving forward. And if they want to look back through and kind of do remakes of what they've done before in that lineage, it'll be really, really cool. There's a lot of it which I thought was very, 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 very well done. I think you, for the time period, would appreciate a lot of what is mentioned in it, and specifically the stuff around the culture of Japan post the war, which they lean into heavily. This idea of it's like his inaction on the island that he lands at, where they first discover Godzilla, results in the death of some engineers. This is right at the beginning. So the death of some engineers, and there's one survivor there who basically gives them the photos of the dead soldiers as his, this is what your inaction caused, and this is now something you will have to bear on your soul. And this character carries this as like a fucking anvil weight on him beyond this point. It basically shapes who he is as a person right throughout. You don't get stuff like that in Hollywood movies. If it was in a Hollywood movie, it'd be a 5-minute flashback and like a bit of kind of trite dialogue. And this one, it's ever present in almost every scene, which is good storytelling. It should be that way. But so I think it'll not be long before it's out if you don't get a chance to see it in the cinema. I think you will enjoy it.
Is Godzuki in this one?
Godzuki is not in this one, you son of a bitch. Give it time. Right, ladies and gents, we're going to take a very short break. You're going to see the trailer, which apparently Baz from this knew exactly what he was getting into, for Trash Humpers. When we return, we're having a short conversation on the 10 minutes Baz watched, as I try and fill some of the blanks in a movie which doesn't really want to be sensical in any way. And then we're going to get into the meat of this episode as we discuss Near Dark. We're going to be right back to do that right after this.
Just any old car. Where is it?
see, what people don't understand is that we choose to live like free people. Three little devils jumped over the wall. La 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 dee da da. Three little devils jumped over the wall, lopped off his head, and murdered it all. And a lopped a doodle da day.
And welcome back. So you've just seen the trailer for Trash Humpers. Stop shaking your head. The movie was written and directed by Harmony Korine. Korine? I don't know how you pronounce it. Korine. Korine. He's American. Korine. Harmony Korine. Ye fucking ha. I mean, there's no point in going through the cast. This follows the lives of a small group of psychopathic elderly people in Nashville, Tennessee. This is fucking Bo country. This is where Bo lives, is Nashville. I'm sure it's Nashville he lives at. Is it Nashville? I'm sure it's Nashville that Bo's in. Yeah. So, yeah. I'm also sure that Bo is not involved with this project. What were you like? What was it? I know the answer to this. This is a stupid question. What was it that made you hit stop after 10 minutes?
I just knew. Do you know what? I just couldn't think of one possible reason not to. To be quite frank, I was like, this is just dreadful. And it's already gone downhill in the 10 minutes that I've watched, so I can only imagine where it's going to end up. And I genuinely, I remember just sitting there, my wife's sleeping on the couch, and I'm like, look at this in me. There's 45 minutes till I'm due to record the Duncan, but it was near an hour. I think I was going to, if I had watched the whole thing, I would have probably had to message you to say I'm running a bit late. Yep. And I just thought, nah.
No dying for these bastards.
Nice big long shit or something like that while I'm waiting. Yeah, there was just and I don't mind a bit of the weird. You know what I mean? Yeah, chuck a greasy strangler. Just chuck a greasy strangler my way or something like that. I'll quite happily sit through the whole thing. Do you know what I mean? But nah, I just think I know what they were trying to do. I think they were just trying to be as weird as fucking possible, and there was nothing to back it up. There was no story, there was no acting. It was just dog shite.
So the only way I could try and salvage something from the movie is like I mentioned before, it's about escalation. So each of the skits, not all of them, but like integral parts in the movie itself, the subject matter gets it's not even that it's weird, it gets a bit edgier, or they incorporate something in which feels kind of, you know, like you can stand back a little bit and go, right, it's really fucking strange. Like there's a scene where because it's not just the characters in their masks, of which it's predominantly them all the way throughout the movie. They interact with other people.
Yeah, there was a wee kid in a suit.
Yeah, so the wee kid, like, he gets involved with this kind of, like, this doll. So they have a doll which is actually
in a bag.
Yeah, baby doll with a bag over it, which in itself is kind of fucked up. And then we obviously see how this doll is treated over a period of like 5-10 minutes, etc. And culminates with the boy kind of smashing the doll on the head with a hammer, like over and over and over again. The movie at the end loops round with one of the characters actually having a real baby in their arms and kind of quasi being in a position where they might have to look after it. And you've seen all the irresponsible behaviour and all the things they've done before that in some way the movie is implanting in your head that actually this child might be in danger, obvious danger, if you've seen what they've been up to. But it's that sort of thing. So as you work through the movie, they set up things done in a certain light, in a weird kind of, almost kind of bizarre, off the wall sort of arty comedy, kind of black humor piece. And then later on in the movie, it's introduced in a way, or the themes are introduced in a way which feels a lot more grounded and real, which then adds to the unsettling nature of it. That's about the highlight I can say for the movie, is that is what I have mined out it. For the most part, it's an exploration of lo-fi VHS filmmaking, which in the era, this was made 2008, 2009. Like, by this point, things like bum fights had already been and gone.
Yeah.
Remember bum fights?
I do remember bum fights.
So,
Yeah,
like,
I don't think I
all that
saw
shit.
them, but
Yeah, all that shit had happened like almost a decade before. So, like, it weirdly plays off that sort of where, you know, like the guys that were like CKY into Jackass and stuff like that. All those kind of like, because they even open with they're being pushed in trolleys and falling over, and like it starts off like an old CKY video. So like, there's a lot of that which is like kind of not paying homage. That's giving it too much credit. But in the oeuvre of those sorts of things, which weirdly kind of validates its, not even its premise, but validates its existence. And then from there, you ultimately, the grounding thing is like they always come back to the fact that these old guys will hump dryly wheelie bins or any sort of bins a lot.
yeah.
And peek through windows. And Liam thought this would be a great movie for you to discuss, which either means that Liam just
Fucking
wants to see the
stoners,
world
man.
burn, which could be a possibility, or he doesn't like you, Baz.
I know what it's like. I think he just thought it would be hilarious, and do you know what? I'm so old and crotchety just now, and not being well has not helped. And I'm like, nah, I'm not doing it.
To be honest, when it didn't make it through, and I voted for it as well because I genuinely thought it'd break you, but then I thought you'd watch it all. So I knew, like, there was no way we were coming on this and you were going to be like, that is a fucking great movie, Duncan. Like, I'd never in a second thought that was going to happen.
No, do you know? At one point, I was like, I could do something quite funny here. Like,
I think that's what he was hoping, is you would have like character names and like you would make the story.
No, it was more that I was going to come on and do the kind of. I just think it's so brave what he's done. You know, all that kind of bollocks, and then going, it's fucking piss.
Every generation has its movie.
Again, I just thought, nah. That's my overriding feeling of this film. Just nah.
Well,
Don't
ladies
want
and
anything to
gents,
do with it.
that has been our brief, and I kept it under 10 minutes, so I'm going to take that as a fucking win. I'm not going to ask you for a score because you didn't complete it, so that feels unfair. But I'll tell you right now, every now and again, we deliver. We deliver on what we said we're going to do, and we have right now. So, we're actually going to fulfill our contractual obligation to you guys, the listeners, by actually reviewing what you selected, which was Near Dark from 1987. We'll take a very short break. Again, you're going to see the trailer for the movie when we return. It's time to talk about vampires in a way which we maybe haven't done before. We'll find out. We're going to be doing it right after this.
Sure haven't met many girls like you.
No, you haven't met any girls like me.
I put my hand on the stocking. I was moving nice and slow. And my fingers do the walking. And it ain't far to go. Don't tell me I don't wanna be a girl like that. Do you wanna see a grown man cry? You don't wanna be a girl like that. Maybe this could be the first time.
dark, pray for daylight.
And welcome back, ladies and gents. You've just seen the trailer for Near Dark. It was your pick. It won handsomely, actually, overall. It wasn't like 1 or 2 ahead. It was a considerable bit ahead. It was a last-minute push for Near Dark. Made me very, very happy. This is a movie that Baz has never seen before. We've had the weird conversation, I know we have, where I love Lost Boys, you love Lost Boys.
Yeah.
But this came out same year as Lost Boys. I love this more than I love the Lost Boys. And I know in your brain, anything that's been mentioned before, what you're thinking about is, if I apply pressure to the trachea, I can kill him.
Yes.
Because we know that you still believe. I was going to start gyrating, but I've not done my crunchies, so the 6-pack's not quite there.
I'm going to go and get my son's little paper saxophone that he had on his nativity thing the other day.
Yeah.
Apparently all the early Christians played the saxophone.
As a sexy instrument. I mean,
Yes,
I get
indeed.
it. I get it. Yeah, so this one for me is the better movie. We'll get into thoughts, opinions, etc., etc. Also, I've had a lot longer with this movie than you have. This one is directed by Catherine Bigelow. We mentioned it before. She went on to great things. She's done a fucking smorgasbord of like incredible genre content, including horror movies, dramatic thrillers, action movies, like Baz mentioned before. It's based and also co-produced by Eric Reed. Eric Reed is a fascinating author. He also wrote a little screenplay movie for The Hitcher, which is also one of my favourite movies. And The Hitcher has that kind of out in the middle of nowhere Americana kind of Dust Bowl sort of, small town sort of like, it has all that inbuilt into the movie. It's why I think it's so effective. And we're just introducing vampires in this one with a similar sort of setting, which I kind of love. The movie itself, fucking incredible cast. Like across the board, this has an incredible cast. We have Lance Henriksen, we have Bill Paxton, we have Adrian Pastor, we have Jenny Wright, we have Tim Thomerson, Kenny Cole, Troy Evans, Bill Cross, Edward Colbert. There are some other people like Thomas Wagner in here. But the synopsis for this one, I'm looking forward to getting into the guts here, is a small town farmer's son reluctantly joins a traveling group of vampires after he's bitten by a beautiful drifter. There you go. So not quite Twilight, but not far off it. They just don't sparkle in this one. Baz, before we get into it, you are not adverse to a vampire film or two. We've discussed a few in our time here. We've not deep dived by any stretch of the imagination, but you have enjoyed the occasional vampire movie. The aforementioned Lost Boys being probably one of your favourites.
Yeah, the Lost Boys is one of those films kind of from my younger years that I think I probably had recorded off the terrestrial television back in the day, and it would be on one of my VHSs. So I had a fairly heavy rotation, and I think I've spoken in the past, certainly in the old Rock and Roll Reviews days. The Lost Boys is probably one of my all-time favourite movie soundtracks. I found it's one of the few that I can actually just stick on and listen to as an album. There's very little filler and a whole lot of killer in that one. I love the Lost Boys. You and I did 30 Days a Night way back in the day.
We've done a few. We did 30 Days a Night. I was thinking while we were chatting there, 30 Days a Night, we have done A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, which is a vampire movie. We also
Let the Right One In.
Fright Night.
We did Fright Night, yeah. We did Let the Right One In.
Let the Right One In.
We've done a few,
a couple of big ones. Like if you ask people about the 80s and vampire movies, inevitably Near Dark comes up, Lost Boys comes up, and Fright Night comes up as like the big kind of the big standout three.
I mean, this was certainly a film that I had become aware of.
Yeah.
And I believe with the aborted Baz v Halloween this year, Near Dark was one of the films that we had discussed doing.
Weirdly,
as part
this
of
was
that,
one that I
yeah.
had. This is one that I had. Weirdly, the audience have picked up here and kind of put forward something quite interesting. The idea we had was that we were going to pair up as kind of as our side movies, similar to last year. We were going to run a theme, and that was vampire movies from each continent. And from America, I picked Near Dark purely because I couldn't think of any other time I would get a chance to get you to watch Near Dark. And we've been talking about it for a while. So that's kind of how it ended up there. Weirdly, that ended up being the pick. If I had had the choice of picking any one movie from that list of vampire movies to get you watch, it probably wouldn't have been Near Dark. It would have been Thirst, but this is where they landed. And to be honest, I'm over the moon that this is where we have actually landed on, because like I say, I think this is fun. I think this is an excellent movie, but most of it comes down to the way that it is so different from other vampire movies, which is kind of why I love it. So yeah, we've ended up here. We've ended up in the weird position of doing a movie that I actually really want you to do, which is not usually what I get when we have a listener choice. We both end up usually being miserable and having to pay penance for yielding control to people that just want to hear us both miserable. So, and you may still be miserable. I don't know what your thoughts on this one are, but I, for one, am happy. So, we'll see how long that lasts. Baz, the floor is yours. Regale us with your experiences in Near Dark.
Strap in, bitches.
Yes.
So, Near Dark, I have to say I was quite excited about this one. Was far from disappointed when it won, I've got to say. I hadn't realised it was a Catherine Bigelow film. And I am a big fan of a lot of her films. Point Break was always one of my favourite action movies when I was younger. But even later on, like films like Zero Dark 30, I remember watching that with my wife. I absolutely loved that film.
Yeah.
Really thoroughly enjoyed it. She's a great filmmaker, Catherine Bigelow, so I've got a lot of time for that. The one disappointing thing about this film straight from the off is it's quite hard to get your hands on a physical copy of Near Dark nowadays.
It's
or like a good
horrifically
kind of
difficult.
copy.
That should be sort of this year coming. So there has been like a lengthy discussion of a 4K UHD release of the title finally, and that it's like there's been various rights issues with it, which have resulted. I think it only ever got released on DVD. I don't actually even know if it was ever released in Blu-ray in the UK.
I don't think it was.
Yeah.
I don't think it was, and even the kind of Region 1, they're quite hard to get your hands on. The DVDs, you can get DVDs out there, but then you're paying for quite a lot of money for a DVD.
A DVD, that's not cool.
I'm like, oh, no. I do kind of begrudge it a bit. I would much rather have a Blu-ray nowadays kind of thing. Anyway, that's by the by. Duncan got me a perfectly legitimate copy to watch, and I settled down the other week there and dipped a toe in the dusty
incredibly difficult to get, but Duncan got me a perfectly legal copy.
The movie itself opens with a young urban cowboy cruising the mean streets in this bitchin' beat up old Ford truck.
Yep.
The truck envy was palpable right from the word going.
Yeah, you a truck man?
Oh god, aye, but I want one like that, like one of those old kind of classic American Ford trucks.
How did I not know this?
That. Yeah.
You find something out new every day. I did not know that.
I've long wanted one of them.
Ah.
So he's driving through what we assume is his hometown. The whole thing, so obviously it's an 80s movie, it's set in the 80s, it's got that kind of I think it's set in Oklahoma.
I think so, yeah.
Which I was doing a little bit of kind of background research. I had initially written the term Rust Belt down, but I don't believe Oklahoma.
I don't think Oklahoma is. I use the term as well,
Rust
but
Belt. But it's got that kind of faded glory, a kind of midwestern town probably had a meat packing plant or something in its heyday, that's now gone to the wall. It paints a kind of bleak picture of it. He then hooks up with a couple of his less upwardly mobile friends who, to be quite frank, he appears to openly despise. Like, from the minute he meets them, he clearly fucking hates them. But he soon he ditches them fairly quickly for this little pixie-haired, street-walking she-devil in denims, who's sucking off an ice cream cone a bit further down the block. She reveals her name to be May. And yes, she may. Yeah, I did find it quite hysterical. It was literally like, right, fuck you, I'm off. And I think one of his pals initially goes to make the first move, and he literally just goes like, nope, I'm going.
Yep.
All right then. You know what I mean? It is a tad misogynistic. A few minutes later, they've hopped into his truck and they head off into the pitch black night of the Oklahoma desert. It was at this point I named our young hero.
Here we go.
I believe he is played by Adrian Pazdar, is that right?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
I think went on to star in Heroes.
It's probably his biggest role, but like we
covered him. Recognised him from.
Yeah, we covered him in. He's a psychologist father in a Home Movie, which we covered many moons ago as well.
Oh yes, that's right.
But yeah, his big breakout role was Heroes. I think in terms of young in this though, he looks super young in this.
He does look super young in this. He's rocking a very 80s kind of brown leather bomber jacket, of which I used to have one, not a million miles away from it. He's got his Stetson, he's got his cowboy boots on, reminiscent perhaps of the movie Footloose to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to call him.
I think you were going to say reminiscent of Big Scott Howley. I was like, yep, I can see. He also has Van Envy.
No, it's more reminiscent of Footloose, hence the fact we will be calling him Kevin Fakin. Like that. Now, it's safe to say at this point that young Kevin Fakin is hornier than a dog with two dicks. He's basically coerced this young ice cream fillator into his car, and he's practically dry humping their legs while he's driving the truck, which is quite impressive, has to be said.
It's those automatics, isn't it? Like this.
Well, it's barely even driving. It's essentially a remote control car. Yeah, she gets him to pull over, probably just to stop him fucking touching her. He thinks he's about to get all sorts of 80s lucky. It turns out she just wants to listen to the night. Alright, hen. Whatever. He keeps trying to kiss her, and she's like dodging tongues just left, right and centre at this point. And dropping a surprising amount of hints that she's a vampire.
Yep.
You know what I mean? She's the girl is not hiding things, you know, in between like fending off tongue blows. He's quite insistent.
Did you have garlic with dinner tonight? Did you have garlic with dinner?
Now, what has to be mentioned at this point is all through this kind of opening, maybe 10 minutes, I think, up to this point, there is a fucking rad synth soundtrack from Tangerine Dream. Just playing over the top of it, and it's not quite, because I checked this on my second watch, but it's almost constant through the film.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether there's dialogue going on, nothing. It's just always there in the background, and it's brilliant.
Yeah, I love like Tangerine Dream for me. Like when it comes to scores, specifically in the 80s, scored some of my favourite movies.
Yeah.
You know, like, you can always rely on them. And the ones that are the best ones are the ones where the director clearly went, go and just do something with the movie. Like, just write something over the movie.
Watch this and can you do something?
And they just went away and did it for the whole fucking movie as opposed to writing like 2 or 3 tracks that are looped again and again.
Yeah. And I think the strength of it is, see if I pick up on something like that in a film, you know it's been done working well, because normally stuff like that just washes by me, and then they'll play, I don't know, fucking Sweet Child of Mine and like, oh, there's a song in there, do you know what I mean? But this, it's just all through it. It does nothing but add to the movie. Mm-hmm. At no point you're like, I wish they'd fucking shut up with that fucking guitar. Do you know what I mean? A phrase you probably never thought you would hear, Duncan.
To be honest, I heard that a lot from you.
But yeah, no, it's absolutely brilliant. I can't talk highly enough of it. And like I say, to me, its measure is how much it actually adds to this film. And that's I am not decrying the film there either. Yeah. I'm stressing just the craftsmanship of this score.
It's also against the odds of the movie. Like the movie, like you mentioned before, it's in Oklahoma. It's cowboys. It's people drilling like that. What Hollywood would dictate to you is the score that should be on this movie should be some sort of panging like steel guitar and you know like lots of sliding all the rest. And what you get is actually what is predominant now in horror movies, which is predominant synth all the way right through.
I agree entirely. I mean, possibly they might have pushed the boat out and thrown a wee Jean Bon in there for 5 minutes. Do you know what I mean?
Hey, we're halfway there.
We're shot down in a blaze of glory, as it were.
I have the 4K UHD steelbook of that movie.
Young Guns 2.
Both. But Young Guns and Young Guns too.
Oh god!
And I bought them purely because I remember being fucking obsessed with those movies as like a young teenager. I have never watched them since I got them. No, they're in the cinema.
I loved it. I had a bought copy of Young Guns, the first one on VHS. That was just watched to absolute death, and I'm fairly sure the second one I had probably recorded off the tail. I to this day would watch Young Guns at the drop of a hat. It's up there with kind of like The Untouchables, just one of those films I would just drop in halfway through it, and I've seen it that many fucking times I can just keep watching it. Do you guys see the size of that goddamn chicken? We're in the spirit world, asshole. They can't see us. It's my very best Dermot Mulroney. I think I've blown my fucking vocal cords out there.
What are you doing? What are you doing here? You need to finish this review.
We're nearly there.
Can't kill over. We're nearly at the end at the beginning.
Turns out she's a vampire.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the score. So young Kevin Bacon decides to take this girl to see his horse. She is remarkably unperturbed by all the fucking ropes that he then appears with. Do you know what I mean? Given the fact she's in the absolute middle of nowhere in the pitch black. A horse is fucking terrified here. They start making out a wee bit. She then starts freaking out about the time and the sun coming up. He puts this down to maybe possibly a strict father. So he then thinks that this is just the perfect time to pull the old 80s cock it or walk it routine. Which for anyone that is either not old enough or not Scottish enough to know what that was basically you were driving a girl in the middle of fucking nowhere and then essentially refusing her to take her home until she had consented to intercourse. And I say consented in the loosest possible terms.
Practice that is no longer practiced.
It's no longer condoned. Yeah, so he basically pulls this. So she relents, but to teach him a lesson, she bites him and turns him into a vampire.
Yep. It's on him.
Yeah, that's entirely to blame. Entirely, really. She runs off and he tries to follow her, but the truck's dead, so he starts walking home as the sun starts to rise. he's getting kind of weaker and weaker as he's stumbling across these fields, and then there's basically smoke coming off him, which is quite funny to watch. He's nearly back at his old man's farm. We see his little sister and his dad working the steers. And then they see him staggering across the field, and then a massive RV comes roaring out of nowhere and just grabs him up. So inside this RV, we meet the rest of May's vampire crew.
Mm-hmm.
We have the demented Severin, played by Bill Paxton.
And this is great in this movie. Yeah, he is great in this movie.
And this is good old coked up Bill Paxton. You know what I mean? This is just right off the back of Aliens. Why don't you put her in charge? And he is just mental in this, in the very best possible way. We have Diamondback, who's a kind of mother figure that goes out with a leader who's called Jessie. Mm-hmm. Interestingly, Diamondback was also in Aliens with Bill Paxton.
She was indeed,
She was the
Vasquez.
Female Vasquez, the female Marine, that's right. And
fucking love Vasquez.
The Holy Triumvirate is topped off by Lance Henriksen, who is the leader in this movie, Jessie. And then
it's almost as if Catherine Bigelow's husband, James Cameron, directed Aliens.
Yeah. There's a bit later on when they're walking through town and Aliens is shown in the fucking cinema in the background.
It's almost as if. Little known fact, I don't know if you knew this. Did you know that Lance Henriksen originally was cast to play the Terminator?
No, I didn't.
There you go.
I didn't know.
Long-time collaborator with James Cameron.
Not having seen any Terminator films. Not good. Doesn't mean much to me. And the last one is this little kid called Homer.
Yeah.
Who is May's sire, and he's also the oldest of them all, even though he's trapped in a tiny fat kid's body.
Yeah.
They're all up for killing Kevin Bacon, but May reveals that she's turned him. They're not too happy about this, but they just pitch up on a big hanger thing and all go to bed. Back at the ranch, Kevin Bacon's dad, Paul Bacon, we're going to call him, he's just giving it to the cops.
Paul Bacon.
Nightfall, and the vamps are arguing what to do with Kevin Bacon. Jesse decrees basically that he's got a week to become one of them. Mm-hmm. They then all kind of introduce themselves to him, including that wee dick Homer, who for some reason insists on holding Kevin Bacon's cock while he tells him who he is.
That's like it's not just like a, it's not like just like a you know, flick. It's a full hand.
Yeah, and then just
dick and
holds
balls.
on to them.
Yeah.
Honestly, he's like the most molesty wee fucking 10-year-old I've ever seen in my life.
He's a Catholic priest wet dream.
He really is. He really is. Paxton nips out on the rob, boosts the worst station wagon in American automotive history, which for some reason he is an absolute raging hard on for. Then they torch the RV. They hole up in a big shed. Kevin Bacon and Pixie Cut head off on their own. He's starting to Jones for some fresh blood, but he doesn't know that that's what it is at this point in time. Attempts to go home, passes a movie theatre showing Aliens. Excuse me, sorry. He ends up in a bus station trying to buy a ticket, but he's short on cash.
Yeah.
Falls foul of an 80s undercover cop. Who...
By the way, this actor here, I think was typecast as 80s cop. And everything.
Is he in hundreds of them, is he?
I think he might be in Terminator as well. If memory serves, he's one of the cops in Terminator when Terminator breaks into the police station and kills everyone. I'm sure he's there as well. That was his typecast. He always played cop.
Well, in this one, he actually ends up fronting Kevin Bacon the extra money for his bus ticket and doesn't make him suck his cock. It's not very historically accurate looking back on it.
Historically accurate.
He has to go off the bus basically because he's dying. He runs into May again, but basically by the grace of fucking God, and then she feeds him from herself, which kind of cuts across some of the traditional vampire mythos. But we'll move on for that. There's a brief scene with the dad and the sister. For some reason, this 9-year-old girl sleeps with a shotgun next to her bed.
Oklahoma, Baz.
Indeed. Cops tell the dad that he needs to bear with them, but he decides that they're going to head out on their own and look for Kevin Bacon. He then calls home but misses them because they're headed out to look for him. Slams the phone down, whole phone box moves. Why are US phone boxes so flimsy?
Well, this is actually a valid point. Like in the UK, not that we have many of them now, but like I had one at the side of my house, right?
The big wrought iron red bastards.
No. I had one of those like they replaced the like fucking red ones with like the traditional BT one.
Oh right,
Yeah.
aye.
I swear to God, the one like growing up in not the nicest of areas. This phone box was pissed in, set on fire, like I think fireworks were set off in it, like big firework, like everything to destroy it. Fucker still worked and was still standing. Yeah. Like it was built to last. Like no fucking idea. Any like telephone box I've seen in American movies, it looks like if a strong breeze came along, they would fucking fall over.
I know, it's like they're origami. Right? Fucking origami phone box. Anyway, we'll move on. Maze then trying to teach Kevin Bacon how to be a vampire, but says he's got to learn to kill. We get a kind of montage of other members of the crew seducing and tricking some victims. One guy gets picked up with Jesse and Diamondback, but turns out he's got an accomplice and he tries to hold them up.
Yeah.
They end up dead as fuck.
Listen, if you're a thief and you go to like, I don't know, rob someone, and they seem happy about that, and then start playing like good old fashioned heavy metal music as they're driving along, get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
You know, like, you don't be like, oh yeah, this is totally working according to plan. They end up.
This man does not seem concerned. I'm threatening to rape his wife.
I have a knife, and this guy seems okay with that.
Surprisingly cool with this.
Which, like the probably a time to mention. We've mentioned how fucking great Paxton is. Henriksen is like legit scary as fuck.
He is, yeah. He plays it
fucking.
excellent in this.
He's put like you mentioned it like the year before he was mild mannered bishop.
Yeah.
You know, not bad for a human. You know, like I can't hurt a human being. And this one, he looks like he'd kill every human being. He's like, this is like, I like genuinely love Lance Henriksen as a
I like Lance Henriksen a lot
as a genre actor. I fucking adore him in this role. I think he's perfect for the kind of gnarled, grisly alpha of this fucking group of vampires.
Yeah, wouldn't argue with that at all. Kevin Bacon and May, they've hitched a ride with this coked up black trucker who for some reason decides he's going to teach young Kevin Bacon how to drive an Arctic fucking truck.
Which once again didn't force him to suck him off, which I mean,
exactly. There's very little forced oral sex in this film, which for a film of the 80s...
Is it Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back? Where... Did you ever see Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back? Am I about to commit like a movie reference? They end up bumping into George Carlin, who's hitchhiking, and they're like, we're getting nowhere with the hitchhiking. He's like, that's because you need to give them a little bit ahead when you're doing it, and they're like that. What the fuck? And he's like that. He's like, it's in the book, and they're like, what book? And he's like, the unwritten book of the road. Yeah, in this movie there's a lot of truckers, there's a lot of truck people, there's a lot of authority figures, all of them just being helpful.
This guy even teaches him how to drive this big lorry and tells him all about the perils of jackknifing. which will come in handy later.
It will. That is Chekhov's jackknife.
They stop the truck, May bites him, and then Kevin Bacon feeds off her again, while some extremely erotic oil pumps are going at it hammer and tongs in the fucking background.
Look at them pumping. Shagging the earth like Trash Humpers. Earth Humpers. A new movie from Catherine Bigelow.
Paul Fakin phones the sheriff. Tells him that Kevin Bacon was spotted at a Kansas bus station, but he's trying to go home. Pause in Waco, Texas. Pre-Branch Davidian, Mike.
Yep. Koresh is not there.
Decides he's heading back to Oka. The littlest vampire in his crew are still not happy that fucking Kevin Bacon won't kill or feed, basically. So he's told he's got one more night to make a kill. The gang then descend on this roadside bar and kind of all hell breaks loose.
This is the kind of... If you're pitching this movie to someone that has never seen this movie before, a couple of the big ticket items are in this particular scene.
100%. Paxton's basically trying to provoke a fight with everybody in the bar. And he's also trying to teach Kevin Bacon about the kind of powers that he possesses. Kevin Bacon then punches some cunt clear across the fucking room. Jesse and Diamondback, they slit the waitress's throat, drain her into a glass. While the remaining patrons, which has to be said includes notorious surfing bank robber Roach, all remain remarkably calm.
Terrified.
Yeah. But calm.
Listen, this is a small roadside bar. It's the first time I've seen this, Baz.
Well, very possibly. But they've probably not seen the littlest vampire sitting on the table, making oddly suggestive dance moves and threatening motions with a sheet of paper.
Yep.
Fuck up, you spoffy wee dick. I fucking hate that kid. Hate him.
Well, I mean, he gets his comeuppance in a pretty nasty way, so...
He does. Paxton's cocaine hard-on fucking kicks in at this point and just snaps this biker's neck. He ain't fucking about it anymore. Puts on the guy's shades. He has a kind of pair of Wayfarers, like Ray-Ban Wayfarers. And do you know... So there's that kind of famous scene, or like still that you get of Paxton with the glasses on and the kind of big shit you can get in and he's kind of covered in blood. I had never made the connection, but there was a one-off issue. It was a kind of preacher companion comic that was based solely around the character of Cassidy.
Yep.
It's set previous to the main story arc in Preacher. It was called Cassidy, Blood and Whiskey. And the cover from that is clearly ripping off Paxton with the glasses and the blood and all that.
That's cool as fuck.
I had never noticed it before.
It's cool as fuck.
And obviously Cassidy is a vampire in Preacher. But it's clearly where it has come from. And I... smirked a little grin to myself when I noticed
Massive nerd boner.
That's probably a better way of describing it. Barman unloads a shotgun into Kevin Bacon's gut, but he just walks it off, much to his own surprise. And then Paxton slits the barman's throat with his spurs.
Fucking love this.
It's kind of cool, it has to be said.
Well, he's teased it all the way through it, like when he threatens Bacon earlier on. It's with his first meet is with his spurs. That's a weird way, and then you see what it does, and you're like, actually, that's pretty fucking cool.
May takes young Roach, the bank robber, for a wee dance, and then I've written here, no doubt leaving him with a raging terror boner. You know, that way you're so scared, but you just can't help being hard as a fucking rock. She then offers him to Kevin Bacon, but he makes a break for it. Young Kevin chases him down while the rest of them torch the bar. That fat little shit, the littlest vampire, is up dancing on the bar at this point. Sadly doesn't fall and break his fucking stupid neck.
You really hate Homer.
Oh, I loathe him. Absolutely loathe him.
I feel so sorry for him as well. At the end of this
either.
movie, I feel sorry for him.
I hate him. No, I hate him. The lisp makes it even worse. I'm going to suck your blood. Shut up, dick. Kevin Bacon catches up with Roach, but he can't kill him and lets him go, basically. And then they all need to fuck off because the sun's coming up. They find a hotel in the nick of time. The owner seems to recognise Jesse from like years ago, hinting at his age. While they're all sleeping, the police surround the motel. It's broad daylight outside when they wake up, which doesn't help matters. As Paxton shoots a cop and all hell breaks loose. This bit's fucking bitching as well.
Yes.
I'll come back to it. I'm going to... There's scenes in this film and you can see where they've been picked up in later years by different directors and stuff and just robbed. Yeah, so this huge gunfight breaks out, and every time a bullet comes through the wall, like a little beam of light will shoot across the room, and it's burning them and all that. I actually feel they could have made... One of my few criticisms, I think they could have made more of that in this particular scene. But I'm picking at things there. I did think it was just a really cool kind of idea, you know, to make the situation kind of worse, if you like. Kevin Bacon, then he decides he's going to make a break for the van by hiding under a blanket to protect himself from the sun, which he duly does. He gets shot, manages to keep going, but basically by the time he gets to the van, he's just like full on fire. Yeah. So then just drives the van straight through the wall into the room. They all pile in and make a break for it in a hail of bullets, which is pretty cool. I've got to say, it's pretty bitching. They hole up in another hotel. Young Kevin Bacon's now flavour of the month thanks to his van escapades at this point. And Paxton even gives him one of his spurs. There's an interesting wee bit here where Jesse reveals that he actually had fought for the Confederacy during the Civil War, which I thought was quite cool. I almost wish they'd kind of expanded on it. It's not that type of film that, you know, in the... late, you know, in '87 when they made the film, they weren't expanding in subplots like that. It's almost
this movie is an '80s horror movie, which means it needs to get in and out in an hour and 40 and no more.
Damn tune. But I like that wee kind of twist on it that, you know, he'd seen some shit, if you like, kind of thing, you know. Oh, that was pretty cool. May also reveals that the littlest vampire had turned her about 4 years ago. Kevin Bacon's kind of growing into the lifestyle at this point, seems to be digging it. That fat little rapist bastard vampire, he's wandering about outside when he comes across this other poor wee kid. Turns out, though, it's Kevin Bacon's wee sister.
Yep.
Convinces her to come back to the room to watch TV. She's surprisingly calm around this group of what at best...
She's got a shotgun beside her bed, Baz. Nothing teasing this kid.
That's true. Diamondback's a wee bit cagier, though, so she finds out what room she's in so they can go and get her dad. Just as she goes to leave, her brother Kevin Bacon walks in. There's a big tearful reunion, but then Paxton drags the fucking dad in. All goes to shit after that. Homer's got a total baby boner for this wee lassie. And he then says he's going to turn her in some weird revenge thing for May turning Kevin Bacon. Big Paw Bacon pulls out a hand cannon though at this point, shoots Jesse square in the chest, just coughs up the bullet and keeps going. Don't give a fuck. Sarah makes a break for it, opens the door, they all get burnt. Oh, we're all raging. The Bacon family then escape in the van with Kevin hiding under a blanket. Dad wants to take him to hospital. And then Kevin Bacon, veterinary genius, strikes on this brilliant notion that he's going to get his father to completely transfuse him with clean blood.
So this is, and I think
Because
this
you know,
is the only.
Dad's a farmer, basically,
Yep.
so he can do stuff like that.
I think this is the only movie that I've ever seen as hypothesized that by
cure.
this is being a cure, and I will
Yeah.
give it. I don't know if it's in the source material. I will give it a huge amount of props for being original, and at the same time completely impractical. But
Yeah.
we'll just shelve that.
Yeah, I'll come back to all that kind of stuff later on, but this is the premise that how he's because in vampire, you know, I suppose the one thing about vampire films, you don't really get that happy ending because if you're bit, you're bit and you're fucked.
This is it. You're not supposed to. They don't like what unless it's once again it's the kind of traditional Lost Boys thing of if you kill the head vampire, those are those that were turned come back.
Yeah.
But once again, that's a very antiquated way of. Like, there's a lot of these things that are written into certain movies, and that doesn't happen in modern vampire movies. Like you see, that seems to be a thing of the past. Like, vampire movies now seem to be relatively tragic. But in the past, where we were trying to do some kind of quasi happy ending, it's either all the vampires are dead or there's a cure.
So anyway, so the sun does come up in the morning. Kevin Bacon does not burst into flames. And despite all medical evidence to the contrary, he's now completely cured. So they settled in for a wholesome, perfectly normal family dinner.
Mm-hmm.
May's hanging out outside, wee bit of fingering. She realises that he's warm, says he's got to stay with the family. She runs off, back inside, realises the wee sister's gone. Saddles up and heads into town on a horse.
Here we go.
He's moseying down Main Street like it's fucking high noon. Paxton ragdolls him around town for a bit. Wee Kevin Bacon manages to get into a truck though. Paxton kills the driver. Kevin Bacon, because he now knows how to drive a truck because the coked up black guy
Had that lesson. Yep.
He charges Paxton down and the truck runs him over, but Paxton does the usual thing where he then appears on the bonnet and he's just pulling electrics out the fucking engine willy-nilly. But then Kevin Bacon remembers his recently acquired jackknifing skills, which he uses to cause the truck not only to jackknife but to spontaneously combust.
Yeah, like the jackknifing skills, which were don't ever like to avoid the truck doing this thing. Don't do this. And he's like that. This is what I need to do.
Yeah,
Great to kill a vampire.
You also the guy didn't go like, don't do that because it'll automatically blow up.
Yeah.
See, just something has petrol in it doesn't mean it will explode.
It's like that argument of if someone robs a bank and murders the teller, what's the more serious crime?
Well, the murder, surely.
Right, surely the murder, but the way it'll be, the way they'll say it in the news is like, you know, they'll put emphasis on the bank robbery which led to the murder, as opposed to like someone is now dead. And this one here, had the conversation been, you know, if you jackknife this lorry, it will explode into a ball of flames. Oh, by the way, this is how you do it. You would focus on the flame bit.
Yeah.
You'd forget the rest of it, but no. He's like that. Watch this. Hold my beer. Flips the motherfucker. Spontaneously combusts. It's bitchin'. I love this action scene.
He then faces off against Jesse in the burning Main Street. In the back of the car, the littlest vampire's trying to molest his wee sister. She escapes, throws a warning to Kevin Bacon just before Diamondback tries to stab him, and then for some reason she completely changes and goes like, "Go and run for it quickly, I'll cover you." Which
It's part of it, like it's kind of set up like they get off on the hunt. You know what I mean?
Is that what it's supposed to be? See,
well, yeah, it's similar to when they were held up in the van. Like, they get off on, like, because I think they see themselves as being impervious. So, like, someone, and they've also been on the earth for however long. Someone running away, right? We don't get you just now, we will get you. You know what I mean? It's
So there's a kind of chase across open fields. The bad guys end up with Sarah again.
Mm-hmm.
But the sun's starting to come up. May grabs Sarah, jumps out the car to try and save her. Littlest vampire gives chase. He bursts into flames despite the fact that May was running about in the sun for far longer than he was. Maybe he's just a fat little shit that's full of blubber. I don't know.
I feel a wee bit sorry for him because he calls out to her to look for help in the way that a child would call for help of their mum. It's one of those things. It kind of reminds me they rip this off to fuck in although I don't know if it's in the source material. I don't know when the source material was published, so maybe came after. But Interview with the Vampire, with Kirsten Dunst's character. You've seen Interview with the Vampire?
No. Again, I've seen bits of it. I kind of know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Kirsten Dunst is essentially she's a girl.
Child.
Yeah, when she's converted, and obviously she ages in her brain, so she wants to become sexually active and all the rest. But you know, things have moved on, and she dies a pretty gruesome death with all the qualities of a child. It's fucking fucked up. It's like anything they do in that movie is instantly. But whenever there's a vampire that's a kid, that's fucked up. Well, Lost Boys do it as well. Star's a vampire as well, isn't she?
Yeah.
So
there's like you've still never seen the What We Do in the Shadows TV series, have you?
no, I keep meaning I will eventually get around to it because the thing is, I know I'll fucking love it. And that's what's not the impetus for me to watch it, is I know I'll fucking love it.
It's Matt Berry's character in it, Laszlo. There's this kind of subplot that he basically turned a baby into a vampire. And it's been a complete fucking catastrophe. And he just, like the pure vampiric council and all that, wanted to, some maniac turned a baby into a vampire. Fucking hilarious. Oh, that's very good. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, so May's jumped out the car, so she's running away. Wee fat vampire kid bursts into flames. It basically explodes.
Yeah.
Caleb manages to protect May with his fucking magical denim jacket of fire protection, +4 or whatever it is. Fucking Dungeons and Dragons armor or something that he wears. And slightly anticlimactically, Jesse and Diamondback just kind of burn up in the car. Although I did like the way the car just slowly rolls off the road. It doesn't explode, it's just like it does eventually, I think, when they explode, but flames coming out it and that.
I think it fits the kind of weird genre that it sits in. That kind of Western style.
Yeah.
Vampire movie, like your two heroes or / villains end up kind of riding off into the sun. Like, it wouldn't be uncharacteristic of a Western movie to have someone, you know, riding off on a horse in sunset and then keeling over. You know, I think it's that sort of thing, but it's done in a car. I think that's basically.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, that's not a bad reasoning.
Try to like, if this gets me an extra half a star, I'll be happy about it.
Jesse then uses his magical cow transfusion kit to cure me.
Magical cow transfusion.
And everything's great, despite the fact that she's essentially a murderer.
She's a murderer and... No, she's a murderer. There's no and here. She's a murderer.
And then it's
Happy
basically
ending.
a freeze frame and into the credits.
Yeah.
So you do get the happy ending. Great movie, man.
Yes,
really,
Baz.
really good
Fucking
film.
yes.
There's
Yes.
no getting away. Soundtrack is other level.
Mm-hmm.
Just a really good take on a vampire movie. It's almost a kind of Western noir
100%.
type thing, you know.
Yep.
It's far more than a vampire movie, and you can see the influence it's had in other films. Now, I know you're saying it came out at the same time as the Lost Boys, and it has a similar kind of vibe to the Lost Boys. It's maybe not as... It doesn't have the shiny kind of comedic elements like you've got with the Frog Brothers and stuff like that in the Lost Boys movies, you know, and people aren't quite as pretty as they are in The Lost Boys, maybe. Excuse me. But you can see things like later movies like John Carpenter's Vampires.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
A heavy vibe take for this from Dusk Till Dawn. You can see that particularly in that kind of bar scene, the bar fight scene that you mentioned earlier on, Duncan. And even something like The Devil's Rejects when they're holed up in that motel and the cops are shooting in, you know. I mean, I just think I feel that this film has had far-reaching kind of tendrils, if you like, in horror cinema going forward. I thought it was great. I thought Paxton was phenomenal.
He's so fucking good in this. It's one of my favourite performances of an actor who I think has innumerable amazing performances. I think he's fucking amazing in it.
And Henriksen as well. To be honest, Pazdar, who's not a bad actor, and I don't dislike the guy at all, he's probably one of the weaker ones in it.
He is, yeah. As a main guy, he's pretty vanilla.
Yeah, very much so. But again, that does not detract from the, from the film itself. I quite like the way that he kind of fights against the kind of lifestyle that he's been forced to adopt, if you like, and then it does seem to lean into it after he saves them. You know, he feels almost part of the group, and then kind of gets pulled back from the brink, if you like, in order to save his family. So I quite liked all that. The transfusion thing is a bit hokey, but I just and I thought about this for quite a lot, and I just feel that there's too much good in this film not to get a pass on that. Do you know what I mean?
Fucking God bless your cotton socks, Baz.
I could have done without it. Yeah, it's a little bit dumb. I take your point. They've maybe tried to do a kind of original thing with it.
I think I look at it. Once again, having not read the source material, I don't know if that's something they've had to carry over from the book.
Yeah.
It
probably wasn't the worst thing in 1987 either.
Yeah, exactly.
We're watching it. 35 years later or something like that?
Yeah. So we're like, medical science would never be able to, I think there's a part of me as well that appreciates when movies try and do something different. And this one at least is doing we can bring him back, this is how we would do it. And there's enough kind of pseudoscience bullshit from, like you say, like 87, where someone might watch that and go, all right. You know what I mean? Without going like that, never in a million years would that work. So I don't hate it. I like, and every time I see it, my eyes do roll a little bit. I'll be honest. Because it's it's a movie about vampires, so
yeah, I know. And I think if somebody like me can turn a kind of blind eye to it, it shows the quality of the film. That I can move by that and not get too hung up on it, as you say. Go, oh, that's a bit dumb, but it doesn't lessen my enjoyment of this film. The other just kind of last words there. So obviously I've raved about the soundtrack, but some of the cinematography and stuff in that as well. Particularly that kind of dusk kind of. Say, when he's riding the horse into town, slowly see the sun rising in the background. Some of it is just gorgeous to watch.
Have you ever seen The Hitcher?
No.
Right, so this is one of the things I always come back to with The Hitcher. It's something to do with, it must be like the presence of Eric Red as a writer. I think he must like this setting, but the cinematography, those shots that you're talking about are all the way through The Hitcher. I think it is one that Second Sight are putting out on 4K UHD next year, and I physically cannot wait to have my hands on it. When I get it, we're watching it at Mines, like on the big telly. I think it is I think it's one of the best shot movies of the 80s. I think it is like fucking chef's kiss good. And it's all those shots, it's all the cinematography, the sun rising or setting, and characters on long dusty roads and all that stuff. And you're right, like Bigelow like fucking nails it here. She captures that. That's what, if you watch a Western movie, that's what you have. Like the characters,
100%. Yeah.
The reason the characters are the way they are, that are loners or survivors or whatever, is because of the environment around them, and the fact that that's as prevalent in this movie is fucking great. The fact that these people, these nomads, can travel around in RVs. It's a small attention to detail. It's the black spraying of windows to stop the sunlight coming in that you just don't see.
The gaffer tape and all that,
yeah, like all that stuff where like there's urgency there that you don't see in other movies. I just think, like you mentioned, I think it is so far ahead of its time on certain things that now are just par for the course with how certain movies operate, vampire movies in particular, that it was doing, like, it was thinking, once again, you've got to think it's the source material, but the fact that that was written in there shows that someone gave a shit about it. Whereas I feel you get a lot of vampire movies kind of immediately post this, that they don't think about this at all, and it becomes back to business as usual, which is a bit of a shame. But Lost Boys is full of that as well. Lost Boys is full of touches and little details that make you think, oh, someone gave a shit about this. And both those movies come out in the later half of the 80s, where, to be honest, horror movies were starting to drag a little bit. You know, they're becoming very outlandish, very over the top. Coked out is the best way to describe them. They were all fucking like ways to launder money or spend shitloads of money and do drugs. And then you see these two little movies that come out not that far apart, both dealing with like elements that were of a decade before, well, were tiresome a decade before, like that, and they bring them back and they do them in really, really interesting ways and unique ways that make them remarkable movies. Like Fright Night is a remarkable movie because it plays it old school. It plays it like a 50s kind of B-movie, kind of like Rear Window sort of, you know, Hitchcockian horror. It's totally fun.
Yeah,
Lost Boys,
the neighbour, a vampire type thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Lost Boys is the epitome of the 80s.
Oh, 100%,
it's all those movies that you got in the 80s, but guess what? There's vampires in it. And Near Dark is, well, let's take vampires and let's put them in a kind of Western, like you said, Western noir sort of setting with bitchin' fucking synths and, you know, like, and let's just play it out. And you get these three completely different flavours of something that less than 15 years before was so cookie cut that Christopher Lee couldn't get his contract with Hammer and virtually does an entire Dracula movie where he doesn't say a word. And the reason he doesn't say a word throughout the whole movie is he fucking hated the script, and he was like, "That I will be your Dracula, but I will not say a word." Like that's what you're dealing with, like these tired things. And then you get this mini resurgence, and then within a couple of years, horror's pretty much dead, and we're in its psychological thrillers. And guess what? Vampires don't make great things for psychological thrillers until you get Interview with the Vampire, where things start to pick up. But even then, that movie plays vampires in a very traditional light. So yeah, it's a woefully underseen movie. But like you say, I think you can trace the filmmakers and screenwriters that have seen it, because there are big bits in their movies that come wholesale from this movie. And I mean, it wouldn't be a Christmas Eve episode without at least one technical snafu. But we're going to bring it home. Baz, there's an important question I need to ask you, my friend. You know what we do here.
Yes.
It's those Netflix grades, or Letterboxd, or whatever we're doing. 1 through 5. 1 is hated it. 2 is didn't like it. 3 is liked it. 4 is really liked it. 5 is loved it. You get those 0.5s if you want to use them. What are you giving Near Dark from 1987?
I think I'm going to give it a 4.5.
Oh, tickle my tits. I will take that, my friend. It's a 5 for me, and anything that's within spitting distance of that 5 makes me very fucking happy.
No, I genuinely love this film. I would happily watch this film again.
Fucking yes!
Like next week, I would sit and watch this again. You know what I mean? It's a great movie. just very. It reminded me a lot. While it's not particularly like The Lost Boys, it just took me back to that kind of era. Just so much to enjoy in it. That, and like I say, the few little bits in it that I maybe didn't really like. There's so much good in it. It just completely outweighs that, and you can just skate by that. I mean, The Lost Boys is not the tightest plot that's ever been fucking committed to celluloid. Do you know what I mean? But it's still a bloody great film. And this is exactly the same. I loved the Western vibe about it. I thought they really hit that well. It just goes to show again what a great filmmaker Catherine Bigelow is. Do you know what I mean?
She really, really is. I don't think I've ever seen a movie that she, in a genre that she turned her hand to, that didn't, like, even if I didn't like the movie, I didn't come away from it going, that was a really fucking well-made movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just an incredible filmmaker. Baz, let's bring this show in for a close. As always, been a fucking blast recording with you this year. We will be doing stuff next year, no doubt. Get some cinema visits under our belt, a couple of short episodes, a couple of those NPCs episodes, and inevitably start planning Bazoween 2024, giving ourselves plenty of time to watch and review and not be stressed at the end. I'm sure that is exactly what will happen.
It's exactly how it'll go down, Duncan. Exactly how it'll go down. No, and there's still a few other wee projects, some of our wee true crime things that we've been promising we were going to get done, and we just haven't for various reasons. So there'll be plenty going on next year.
Which reminds me, as an update, I listened to at least one of your podcast suggestions.
Which one did you listen to?
I listened to the one about the Edinburgh lawyers.
Oh, Shiny Bob.
Which was fucking riveting. I listened to it all in a night. So, like, during one of my lovely insomnia bouts, I fucking, like Hasselhoff eats a burger, I consumed it messily and in one sitting. So yeah, it was great. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, that was really good. Please listen to The Cruelty.
I will do, man. It's on the list. Got to download it.
Because that's, I keep on at my daughter to listen to that as well. In fact, she's doing her honours paper is to do with sort of childhood trauma and how it can affect education and so on. And there was, she was talking about the other day, she specifically mentioned the travelling community, and I was like, you've got to listen to that podcast. You know, so yeah, no, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Shiny Bobs. Funny, I was asking I asked my father-in-law if he had ever come across him, because obviously he was a lawyer and he was involved in courtroom law, you know, for a long time when he was younger. He said the name was kind of vaguely familiar, he'd heard of it, but he did say that he could remember this kind of idea of a kind of cabal of kind of gay judges. He said he'd heard rumours and stuff over the years and stuff like that.
I would imagine a community of lawyers is such that, you know, that does the rumour mill, you know, works its way through.
But it was in particular, it was how all that ended.
Oh, aye.
Was, you know, it's like, well, there's your real secret. That's what was going on here.
Yeah.
It was nothing to do with all this other stuff.
Yeah.
This is what it was about.
It's great storytelling as well. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. It's very well done. Very well put together.
Yeah. The other good one I think, as I mentioned to you, was the one about the missing Madonna as well.
That's right, yeah. Which I also have downloaded. I put them all on my machine when you mentioned them. But I thought I better mention that because I think I've been meaning to mention it the last 3 times we've seen each other and I haven't done it. So did listen to it almost straight away. So it was very good.
Nice, excellent. All right, my friend.
Will we bring this in? Do you want to say goodbye and wish our listeners a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, Baz?
I will. I hope you've enjoyed this interview, this review tonight, folks, of Near Dark. I hope you weren't too disappointed about the Trash Humpers fiasco, but
Liam right now is beside himself, but he'll just have to get over it.
Anybody that cares about that can just go and fuck themselves. I hope you've all enjoyed the small amount that I've contributed to the show this year. Hopefully we'll be back a bit more regular next year, folks. But I'm not making any promises, but I will definitely be back in some form or another. And if you don't hear from me before, have a great Christmas, a great New Year, celebrate it however the fuck you do. If you don't celebrate Christmas, have a good time doing whatever you do. If you don't celebrate it, finger your other half. You know, just make your own fun. And I will see you all in the fullness of time.
How do you follow that up? You don't follow that up. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year when it comes to each and every single one of these. And we will speak to you all diligently in the new year. Take care. Bye.